Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with Efe Ajagba, who I did report in a separate video has signed on a promotional deal with Top Rank to fight on ESPN. But his split with his trainer, Ronnie Shields' former trainer, was more acrimonious than first thought. So Shields was on the Boxing Voice and he revealed that he was the one that parted company with Ajagba, and that was in essence, and this is me sort of summing it up here, because Ajagba was going to leave Shelly Finkel. He said Finkel had been good to him, he'd looked after him in the United States, and Shields himself was friends with Finkel for many decades, and said he didn't think it was right. So he said he parted ways with Ajagba at the point that Ajagba signed with Jay Prince. And he also said that when he spoke to Efe Ajagba, he actually hung up on him and hasn't spoken to him since. So Ajagba is now being trained by Kay Karoma. You can see here on screen a shot of them. This was posted on his social media a number of days ago. And just staying with Ajagba, going to ESPN and Top Rank and now being trained by Kay Karoma. Mike Coppinger of The Athletic, and see here on screen. So his former promoter, Richard Schaefer, says, Efe thought the grass was greener on the other side. He wanted to make a change. Shelly, me, and Ronnie Shields, one of the best trainers in boxing, didn't want to stand in his way. And Finkel went on to say, I wish him well. And it's also worth noting in that interview with the Boxing Voice, Ronnie Shields sort of implicated that Efe Ajagba's girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure what the case may be, had probably been in his ear and sort of, effectively said, you should maybe go looking elsewhere. So, yeah, a little bit messier than expected. And originally I thought maybe this is down to money, but Ajagba is with Prince now and also Top Rank. So he will make his debut on ESPN at some point in 2020. What do you make of the situation? A little bit messier than it first seemed. And Shields was very, I don't want to say emotional, but he was certainly a bit worked up in that interview on the Boxing Voice. Eddie Hearn has revealed that he's had a conversation with Frank Warren, his rival promoter in the UK, following Warren's public appeal for the two to work together for the betterment of the sport in the United Kingdom and to make the big fights for the fans. So Hearn said that he left a message, that he gave him a buzz and just said, listen, once we get Fight Camp out of the way, we'll have a chat. And he said he was more than happy to discuss fights and we will get together and discuss it. And Warren has suggested putting on 10 different fights at this point, 4 of them being heavyweight fights: Joshua and Fury, Nathan Gorman, Dave Allen, Dillian White, Daniel Dubois, and Joe Joyce and Derek Chisora. Alexander Povetkin is set to land in the UK and have the 14-day quarantine period ahead of his fight with Dillian White, which is going to be on August the 22nd. That's the 4th Fight Camp card. So he's been training in Russia. Obviously, he is Russian. He lives in Russia. He's had a number of good sparring partners in camp, including Vlad Tsarenko, Igor Shevedutsky, and Magomedrasur Majidov. And he is hoping to spar Derek Chisora and also Dave Allen ahead of the fight with Dillian White, hoping to get some rounds in. And for his preparations for Dillian White, getting some final, sparring like that is probably going to be a good thing. But that fight card, a little bit TBC on some of the fights at the moment on the undercard. Originally, you had Martin Bakole facing Sergey Kuzmin, and it's been revealed that Sergey Kuzmin has pulled out, and the reason being that his father is sick. But they're still looking for a fight for Martin Bakole and a guy who's stuck his hand up. And of course, it would have to be Michael Hunter. Hunter recently parted ways with Matchroom. He believed he still had time and fights on his deal, but he was cut loose. And now he said on social media, heard Kuzmin fell off at Eddie Hearn. So reading between the lines there, he would take that fight. And remembering, he beat Martin Bakole back in 2018. That was a good fight, stopped him in the final round. A tiring and gassing and injured Bakole ended up getting taken out in that final round. But it was a good back and forth fight for the most part, but Hunter too slick on the night. And I would like to see that rematch. I think both guys have improved since that first fight. And with Bakole going through the rebuild and Hunter sort of using that Bakole win as a platform to go on to do other things, it's a rematch that has some appeal for me. But the question being, is it just too late in the piece now because he would have to have a 14-day quarantine period? And that's the thing. You'd need to jump on a plane and have the deal done effectively immediately. So it seems likely that if Bakole is to remain on the card, they're going to find a local opponent, someone from the UK. How good that opponent would be, it's another question, because if it is someone less than Sergey Kuzmin, if it ends up being some sort of, durable journeyman, well, let's face it, the quality of the card dips. Disgraced American heavyweight Gerald Miller, who recently failed a drugs test, has had his temporary suspension extended by the Nevada State Athletic Committee, which has met to discuss his case. So it's going to reconvene at a later date, and until then, he is still suspended. So I guess watch the space in respect of his case. Manuel Charr, or otherwise known as Mahmoud Charr, says that he hopes that his promoter, Errol Silan of EC Boxing, can make a fight with Andy Ruiz Jr. Charr telling Sky Sports that his promoter Silan is heading to the United States next week, and he says, I hope it's serious because I talked to my promoter Errol Silan and his partner is Al Heyman. He works very closely to Al Heyman. Errol Silan is right now in Turkey. He will fly next week to the United States to talk personally to these people, and I hope he can make this fight happen. If any opponent gives you a chance for the world title fight, you say no, or do you say yes? Make this fight happen. I'm ready for you. If you want, do this fight. I will risk my belt. I don't need an easy fight. Fight me. Well, apparently Manuel Charr doesn't need any fights because he has been inactive for almost the past 3 years. But he has been campaigning for this Ruiz fight in recent weeks, 3 or 4 times calling Ruiz out and even coming up with, see on screen, a mock promo poster, hoping to fight Andy Ruiz Jr. possibly in Mexico. But I'm not sure if this fight gets made, but if it does, Andy Ruiz Jr. beats the absolute brakes off Manuel Charr and cashes him out, gives Charr a payday and sends him on his way. But I don't see this fight happening. I think it's more likely that Andy Ruiz Jr. is going to be facing Chris Arreola next, which the signals and the reports in recent weeks, everything suggested is going that way. Perhaps Charr and Ruiz could be after an Arreola fight, but I'm not so sure that it's going to happen immediately next. What do you make of that situation? Christian Thun, the 6'9" heavyweight, is set to face Jason Bergman on August the 15th. This is in Daytona Beach. This is a rescheduled date. It was originally meant to happen on July the 24th, and you can see here on screen the promo poster with Christian Thun, who's known as the Hurricane. He says 72 sprays of Dior Fahrenheit, fresh skin fade, and I'm ready. Hurricane season, baby. And this is a much-needed step-up fight for Christian Thun, who somewhat has been struggling to get traction. But Jason Bergman, a tough, durable journeyman, if he can get past him and easily enough, it will certainly start to generate a bit more hype and buzz about potentially what he can do in the heavyweight division. He does have good skills and obviously the height, so he has the potential to go far, but does he have the talent? Can he start putting it together in the ring? That's another question. And Christian Thun at this point has sort of claimed to fame to some extent. Remember, ahead of the first Tyson Fury fight in 2018, Deontay Wilder broke or fractured his arm. He actually did that on Christian Thun. Thun sort of put his elbow down to his chest. Deontay Wilder punched it and broke a bone in his arm. And rounding out this heavyweight news mashup video, Ukrainian heavyweight Lyubomyr Demolition Man Pinchuk, who has a record of 12-1-1 with 7 knockouts. He's fighting in the United States, but he's just signed with Star Boxing. So he formerly mostly at cruiserweight, all but one of his 14 fights have been at cruiserweight, but he is now campaigning at heavyweight, according to Star Boxing. So he is living in the United States. He's a 24-year-old. He's got 250 amateur fights under his belt. So he does have some skills. And his trainer, Michael McSorley, says Pinchuk is a throwback fighter who is fearless and also a relentless terminator. He is a punishing counterpuncher. And apparently he bases and tries to emulate his style on his favorite fighter, which is the heavyweight champion for the WBC, Tyson Fury. And his new promoter, Joe DeGuardia of Star Boxing, says he looks forward to working with Pinchuk and to see what is to come for him. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.